what you call it, signal. And if I need to, I can hang up and call in from my phone and then see if that helps things. But obviously you can hear me, so maybe it's me.
Still can't hear me?
I like the very pensive, concerned look on your face. I'm digging it. Okay. All right. Well, it's going to make it a little more difficult to do Q&R here without me being able to hear y'all. And Chris, like I said, if you can think of something, let me know, but we'll get after it here. All right. He said just start. Okay. All right. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And let me see here. So introduce myself. My name is Hoss Feathers, and I'm happy to be here with y'all. I got introduced to Chris via his son's father-in-law. And so anyway, I'm here to talk to you about Kairos Prison Ministry and the value of souls. We'll keep it light. I like to celebrate my faith. I don't like to mourn my faith. Please, whatever you do, wherever you go in your life, don't be one of those serious, gloomy Christians. Please, have a good time. Laugh about it. All right. So my background, happily married for 30 years. Not necessarily all in a row, but we've been married for 35 years, and most of it was happy. So that was good stuff. And we have 3 adult children. I call them the progeny. And we are stuck here in the People's Republic of Illinois because my wife fell in love with our parish. And, I thought with my military assignment, we would not be here very long. But anyway, we fell in love with the parish, and there are worse reasons to be someplace. The parish is very welcoming. My wife, she's a teacher for Catholics of the Good Shepherd. And we also have in that parish small Christian community groups, and then a number of other things, men's group, and it's just a very nice, very welcoming place to be. So work, I used to be active duty military. I was in the Air Force for a little while, 21 years, most of the time spent in the Air Force Special Operations, and now I call myself a cubicle commando. And on our instant messenger thing at work, my status, I normally keep it up there, is I used to break things and kill people for a living. Now I do this. So here we are. That's a little bit about me. My faith, religion and faith, which I think are 2 very different things. People sometimes ask you what your faith is, and that's a broad topic. But I'm a cradle Catholic, been practicing on and off my whole life. My joke is that I'm a recovering Catholic. That means I've been to the first 12 steps, admitting I'm Catholic. Hope nobody gets offended by that. And, I understood right and wrong along the way, but I really didn't have a relationship with God. I really didn't know what that meant. However, I'm at peace with God now, and it's a whole new level of peace. It's a whole new level of peace in my life. All right, some rules of engagement, some ROEs. My views are my views. I'm not representing, the Catholic Church. Pope Leo didn't call me. I'm not representing them. These are my views, and we'll talk about it. Like I said today, I'm going to talk about why I do prison ministry, how I got into prison ministry, the goal of prison ministry, the value of souls, and how it applies to all of us every day. And then whatever questions we may have, what time we have left. All right, can I get a thumbs up from somebody in the audience? All right, there we go. Look at that, I got 2 up front, good deal. All right, so why do prison ministry? It is a mercy. And Matthew 25, verse 35, 36, for I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. And Pope Francis, back in 2016, he called 2016 to be an extraordinary jubilee. And that designation means a holy year outside the normal cycle. and that's when something specific is emphasized, and the emphasis there was on mercy. So again, with the not being able to hear y'all, it might be a little much, but we'll keep Chris busy. Do y'all know what the two types of mercy that the church talks about? Those two different types. Anyone? Chris?
What do you say? Two types of mercy.
All right, we're gonna, oh, they're dancing now. Here we go. All right. We're gonna say that we got somebody in the back, Scott, the two different types of mercy. Corporal, yep. And spiritual, look at that. Hopefully nobody was using their phone for that, but yeah, absolutely. So the 7 spiritual works of mercy, and that's where I do most of my focus, I think, is, counseling the doubtful, instructing the ignorant. And remember, ignorant is different than stupid. There was a guy I worked with, he was an Army veteran, and I said, wait, I get it, you're ignorant of that fact, and he got all upset, and he said, and after we talked, I explained that ignorant just meant you don't know, and he goes, oh, okay, I thought you were saying I was stupid. And I told him, I said, you may very well be stupid, but I wasn't bringing that up. That's a whole different thing. So, anyway, and the other spiritual work is admonish the sinner, and I call that social cueing. When somebody's doing something wrong, bring it up to them that they've done something wrong. And that's one of our responsibilities. Comfort the sorrowful, forgive injuries, bear wrongs patiently, and pray for the living and the dead. Now, the corporal works of mercy, those are things oriented towards the body. It's 6 of the 7 are in Matthew. You got feed the hungry, give drink to the thirsty, shelter the homeless, clothe the naked, visit the sick, visit the prisoners, and bury the dead. And bury the dead got added later. That's one that's not in Matthew because of the Jewish ways that if you weren't buried, it was a big deal. Anyway, so that one got added. All right, so that's the codified, the written why we should have mercy. So how did I get into prison ministry? Well, a neighbor was he was going to be a weekend leader for a team, and in Kairos prison ministry, what they do is they'll have a team that has a relationship with a penitentiary, and the penitentiary gets to know the team gets to know the prison, and you get used to it, used to each other. So he was on the team, and he asked me, said he needed help for the team, needed one more guy, and I didn't realize at the time he was lying to me, but it was one of those nice lies, I guess, maybe, because he really didn't need me on the team, but I needed to be on the team. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And my wife was like, what? You're the last person I ever thought would do prison ministry. And I'm like, yeah, I know, right? Me too. I'll get into a little more of that in a bit. So we go through these formation meetings, and the Kairos chapter that had a relationship with this prison, a maximum security prison, and so we do a 3.5-day retreat twice a year inside the penitentiary, and then we do monthly reunions. Some groups are allowed to go into the prison more often, but that's what this team has with this penitentiary. And we don't sleep inside the penitentiary, but we're in there all day. It's about a 14-hour day inside the penitentiary. And then we're housed outside. We get to eat with the prisoners. That's a treat. If you have any questions about prison food, it's probably not as good as your camp food right there, but I'll tell you, it's a thing. But then again, all the places I've been with the military and stuck and kind of weird things, the food really wasn't my problem. Plus, I'm a big fat guy and I like to eat. I can kind of power my way through most anything. So I went to the formation meetings, and so we go into the prison, and the first thing you do when you're in there is they bring the prisoners into whatever the area you've got, and they have you're hosting one or two prisoners, depending upon what the ratio is, team to prisoners. And so you welcome them, get them a cup of coffee and things. So they allow us to bring coffee, tea, lemonade, and cookies in. Anyway, and so the guy, and I'm looking at his name, and I'm looking at these guys, and this was going to be my first contact, and I'm like, whew, as long as it's not that guy, I think I'm good. Say a little prayer. Well, you probably know how that story turned out. So they call this guy's name, and I look up, and it's the guy, and he's walking to me, and I'm like, okay, here we go, it's on. And so I introduced myself to him, give him his name tag, and then hang it over. And this guy has got a tattoo over this eyebrow going down, and it's, letters about so high. Tattoo says cash money. And he's got teardrop tattoos here, which mean loss of life, and he had some other neck tattoos and stuff. And I'm like, all right, here we go. And that was like, whew. I think probably good for me, because if I got into it sort of, in a shallow mode or whatever, I don't think it would have, or somebody that was much easier, I don't think it would have got me in the game as quickly as it did. I got my head around it. But during that weekend, and I'll tell you, one of the things that a guy in that weekend, one of the inmates, and we call them residents or participants, but one of the residents there, and he stopped me during the 3.5-day weekend. He said, "Hey, Hollis, can I ask you a question?" I'm like, "Sure." He was 28 years old, and he goes, "So you're telling me that I can just be happy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you can just be happy. Turn away from the dark and the ugly stuff, and and you can just be happy." He's like, but hold on, so I can just be happy?" Yeah, and it just blew his mind. He had never known that was a possibility, that you could choose happy. The culture he grew up in, and we talk about our society. Generally, our society is maybe one or two groups beyond your house, and that's really what most of us end up referring to as our society. And that really struck home. And so after I got home from the retreat weekend, my wife asked me, how was it? And I told her, I said, I'm not sure, because my head had to go through a lot. I had a lot to unpack. And she says, "Well, are you going back?" I think I have to. It's just undone. So I've been doing these retreats, oftentimes, two retreats, a lot of monthly reunions. I've been working with 2 different penitentiaries now. So I don't know how many times I've been inside the penitentiary and done this, but it's a lot. And people tell me that prison suits me. I think mostly that's a compliment. Not really sure all the time, but I think mostly it's a compliment. Anyway, and for me, really, it's been a continuing evolution of myself, because, I put in Neanderthal and this whole self-introspection journey stuff. I'm like, okay, but here I am, look at there. I'm doing the journey and kind of being that journey guy. One of the things I'll throw at you, we're not all built for prison. We're just not. But, certain personality, and I'm more outgoing than most of the guys on the team by far. But the personality spectrum in the prison I don't find it any different than in groups outside the prison. You have your introverts, you got your extroverts, you got all, and it's pretty much the same mix. But, not everybody's built for the ministry. That some people have anxiety about it, some people have medical conditions that can't go in. And one of the big things you got to be able to have for this ministry is the ability to listen. And I don't want anybody to point fingers at other people in the room that might have trouble listening, but if you have trouble listening until you get good at listening, you're probably not going to be that prison ministry person. And men have a lot more opportunities in prison ministry, but I'll talk about that again here in a couple of minutes. So. Chris, if anybody's got any questions, you can write them on. I'm monitoring the chat thing there as well. But I'll keep going here is the goals of prison ministry. And I look at it as it's a society of souls is really how I look at prison ministry. It's how I look at the room that you're sitting in, that group. I mean, we're all different groups of souls. And Kairos, again, the group that I belong to in there, Kairos Prison Ministry International, and they've got chapters all over the States. They've got them in different countries as well, Australia, South Africa. It's a lot. And the recidivism rate, so the rate at which folks that get out of the penitentiary commit crimes and come back is so greatly reduced if the guys go through the Kairos weekend, attend some of the retreats, and they make that change. It's not about Kairos, but it's about the change that they make inside. So, like I said, the Kairos, what we do is we strive to build an active Christian community inside the institutions. So, question, how well do the prisoners respond to the ministry? You know, really well. It's the first day that we go in there, you know, we're just talking, introducing ourselves, and we don't really bring God up. We're only in there for the first day, or we're in there for a few hours setting up, and then we normally have the inmates for about 5 hours. And we do talk about some things, but we don't get into their crimes. We don't get into prison conditions. We don't get into their case or any of that other stuff. But we listen, and we're just there being present with them. And just that is an amazing thing. Guys are like, wow, somebody's talking to me. You got me a cup of coffee. You're kind to me. And we're just sitting and talking like, you know, humans do all the time in most places, but maybe not all places. And it changes so they don't feel like they have to be on edge and watchful. And it takes about an hour or two, and then you see the participants sort of loosening up and looking around and going, huh, and starting to get comfortable. But they respond to it a lot, but they respond differently. Some guys are ready and they're thirsty for it, and they're ready to jump in with both feet. Other folks are just quiet and clammed up, and all weekend you may not hear anything out of them until maybe the end of the weekend, and then the Holy Spirit of God gets on, and then they loosen up. But it has been amazing to see that transformation from, we generally start on Thursday afternoon and we end Sunday afternoons around 4 or 5. But the transformation between those two times is amazing. Yeah, the one guy that really sticks in mind, he looked like death warmed over when he came in on Thursday evening, and his story was that he had he committed murders, and then the day that he got sentenced to time in the maximum security penitentiary, the day that he got sentenced, his wife killed herself, and just bad. And from Thursday and then on Saturday, when he came in Saturday, I couldn't even recognize him. You could tell that, and he spoke about it. He said, I'm not giving myself permission to say what I did was okay and that I didn't cause a bunch of bad things, but wow. He said the thought that God might forgive me and that I can let that go as long as I turn away from the dark side, and it's an amazing thing to see. So thank you for the question. And with the prison ministry, what we do, in my phrase is, we encourage them to get right with God. That's what we do. We aren't doing. Again, we're not worried about much the prison conditions because I can't change those. We're not worried about the food because I can't change that. And we're not so we don't get it. And if guys want to, gripe about that a little bit, we listen to them. Again, our slogan is listen, love, love. And it's tough for me because I talk a lot. And it's something to sit back and listen to people, and then you can hear oftentimes the hurt and things they've got going on inside, and the reason that they continue to go down that path and embrace the dark side of the ugliness, rather than letting go of that and getting right with God. And fire another question if you have, but my next part is, I've been asked, how can I support prisoners? Because they've done, bad stuff. 95, I think, percent or so of them have killed other people. This is maximum security. This isn't day camp. This is, they call it the prison Menard in Illinois. They call it the pit, and there's a reason for it. But one of the things that I noticed after my wife talked me through it on different approaches like she takes with Catechist of the Good Shepherd for the kids is I came up with what I call the trash rapid. And the thing is, like on the first Menard weekend, 100% of the inmates at the weekend had drugs and alcohol involved in their crimes. 100% of them. And so they were doing, they were engaging those things, leading them down the wrong path. And here's a nice statistic. Men do most of the bad stuff on the planet. And really the statistic is 89% of crimes against other people are committed by men. So it's understandable, I think, although not nice, that we live in a misandrist society. So, and again, if anybody's got questions about any of that, there's Stephen Frown in there, but it's understandable with all the things that guys do that we do live in a misandrist society that are watching out for men to do bad things. But so the trash rappers, when I came up with this, when you're in your mother's womb, you're this beautiful, priceless soul, and this wonderful wrapper that's growing around it, and then when you're born, beautiful, priceless soul, and this beautiful wrapper around it, and as you grow, that soul is still priceless and beautiful, but that wrapper gets a little dinged up, it gets bald, that wrapper looks a little rough. We do things we shouldn't. We do bad things to people. We hurt people. We kill people. All of those things. And that wrapper is pretty darn trashy. But that soul it's still inside and still valuable and priceless. And so one of the ways that I've been able to participate in prison ministry is when I'm talking to an inmate, is I talk to the soul when I'm having trouble talking to that wrapper around it. My toughest one was one of the inmates, and he wanted to talk with me, and he was just letting things out, and he was a pedophile. And that was when I really had to go, okay, talk to the soul, because the wrapper around it really starts to get me pissed off, and I want to react in a way that isn't going to encourage that soul to get right with God. I'm not going to undo what he's done. I'm not going to be able to fix those things, but I can encourage that soul to get right with God. I see we got a question here. So, chaplain on your team, we interact with the prison chaplain, and we often have clergy on our team, whether they're Protestant ministers, Catholic priests, deacons, or other things. But we try to get at least 3 or so clergy on our team. So one of the things that, with the trash wrapper, I encourage y'all, because y'all might run into, I don't know, somebody at the camp that isn't the most wonderful person to be around, and it might be kind of annoying, you're tired, it's hot, whatever, that kind of stuff. So maybe, you know, focus, talk to that soul or listen to that soul rather than dealing with the wrapper, because that gets a bit, challenging. Yeah, and I'll tell you, I'm one of the last people you find in prison. Well, at least in prison doing ministry, that is. I think we all got it in us that we could do some rough stuff out there. And I'm not particularly sympathetic to anybody, really. And I don't think the prisons are all misunderstood. In 13 years of doing this, not one inmate has said to me that it's somebody else's fault. And I find that amazing. Doing this for that long, and you talk with people, and one guy did tell me, he said, well, I'm not in here for the crime I didn't do the crime that brought me in here, although I'd done a bunch of other crimes, so this is where I need to be anyway. And he said, if I wasn't in here, I'd be out there hurting a lot of people and hurting myself. And he said, after going through the weekend and doing a number of the reunions with him, he said, and I love this phrase, I just lost my taste for doing bad things. It's like, ooh, lost my taste for it. And I'm like, that's a great way to put it. It isn't that you really are tempted to do those things, but you look at it and you go, that's not really, and you lose your taste for it. So that's what I strive to do. All right. Okay, I don't see any other questions popping up in here. And I was going to we got one? Go ahead. Bring it in. If Chris could figure out the common issues, you could just tell me, but at least got to type it. Not that I'm making fun of Chris, because that would be not nice, but All right. And one of the stories which I thought was kind of wild is, have you ever worked with anyone on death row? No. And because I'm in Illinois, Illinois does not have the death penalty, although I have worked with guys that were on death row before Illinois abolished the death penalty. So, yeah. And I'll tell you, again, not terribly sympathetic person, and I'm somewhat understanding, but maybe not that much. Is that I have never agreed with the death penalty, and the reason I haven't is I think it's a bit much for us to determine whether somebody gets to live or die. I think that should be in God's hands, not our hands. And to be completely transparent, while I was active duty and I was in gunships, and we did kill some people, but the death penalty is just a decision to me to go, okay, we're going to take that life when that person's incarcerated and not a threat to anyone. And so I've never agreed with that. But again, I had no interest in doing prison ministry or any of those things. But let's see, how has this training from your own spiritual journey? Man, it's one of those things where you think you're all good to go. I'm like, I am good to go and squared away. I know right. I got all these other things, and then you start on this journey of stuff. Because I've always been a destination person, and so if I get, you've heard the talk about you're a destination person or a journey person. Okay, I'm a destination guy. Can I get a show of hands of who are destination people in the room? Anybody? Got a couple. Everybody else are journey people? Okay, got some destination folks. All right. And it would really just, I guess, aggravated me that for most of my life, I was a destination person. In fact, the only reason I was on the journey was to get to the destination. And now it's changed me to, my perspective now is that the journey is the destination, that interaction with others, that positive thing. Again, like I said, I don't mourn my faith. I don't do it loud, always sort of saying we got to keep each other, enjoy it, laugh, have a good time, and be positive. So it has changed me to just enjoy the journey, which makes me admit that I was wrong for a lot of years. Anyway, so got a question for the group out there. We could show of hands again. You ready? All right. So, do you believe we have a soul? Anybody? Okay, being a Christian camp, I would think so. Up front in the green t-shirt. Okay, there we go. He's in there. All right. And so then, do you believe that the soul is valuable? Show of hands. Valuable? Okay, we have some people think we have a soul, but it's not necessarily valuable. Okay, got it. So to me, that's the key point of the conversation is, and if we're transparent about it, if we think everybody has a soul and we think the soul is valuable, then the rest of the conversation gets pretty easy. We may not agree with each other. There may be folks that think we don't have a soul, and so but if we are transparent, we can understand each other's perspective. And so if you believe we have a soul, then the question is, and it's kind of a rhetorical question here, because we don't have the audio, but when do we no longer have an obligation to support the souls in others? So everybody's got a soul, we believe that, and the soul is valuable. When do we no longer have an obligation to support that soul? My viewpoint and where I am with it is that I don't think we ever get relieved of that responsibility. So, but keep it simple. And somebody when they're in heaven, fair enough. Okay. And when we no longer have the responsibility to support the soul. So, again, being simple and keep it simple. I think all these things are really simple. Then don't be dualistic, that a person is either all right or all wrong, they're all good or all bad. I mean, there's only one person we've identified in history that was all good, and a group of guys over in another country crucified the heck out of him about 2,000 years ago. But we all have good and bad in us. And as we embrace the uncomfortable parts of our beliefs, maybe, keep from doing I believe this, but, and I believe this, but we still do whatever these other things that don't agree with our beliefs. So what I'd ask everybody, and what I have to do is make my peace with the overlapping parts of my beliefs. And that when I think that we have that responsibility to support other souls, then, and I don't think that goes away, well, that conflicts with, the heck with those guys that commit crimes and they're in prison, or the heck with those folks, they do these things. So I think that part of it is where I have changed a lot. So in talking about, we support souls, or we don't need to support them up to they are in heaven. So if we talk about that with prisons and prisoners, then, so when do you think we get a soul? That to me has been one of those questions that people tend to get uncomfortable when I ask that. And see the answer there at conception, is it when the baby's born and God breathes the soul into him right there? Is it males, because we're no fun, nobody likes teenage males. Apologize for all the guys in the room, but nobody likes us because we're annoying. And when do you get a soul? And whenever that is, and if we think the souls are valuable, then that has a lot of implications on being pro-life, being pro-child, not just, okay, get the kid here and don't kill it, but also don't just neglect the child. Again, tolerating teenage males, which is a challenge for anybody in any place, in any society. And one of the books that my wife Charlotte has read, she told me about is, lay my Isaac down. And the question in that book really is, because Abraham and Isaac and God asked Abraham to sacrifice Isaac, is, are you willing to sacrifice your most precious thing for God? And I would challenge a lot of the group, and I challenge a lot of people that I talk to is, are you willing to sacrifice those things that you want to be true to act on and be steady with your beliefs? How does it come out when your beliefs versus those things that you want to be true? And that gets pretty sticky. But yeah, well, I believe in so and this and that, but if somebody's done this crime, then we should kill them. Really? Well, what are your beliefs? So is it things that you want to be okay? You want to be absolved from that? And that's that very sticky part inside the prison, outside the prison. But I'll tell you that going in there and encouraging guys to get right with God, and the correction officers have consistently told us, the guys that have been through the Kairos weekend and gone to a couple of reunions, they don't have any more issues with them. They're just very much a different person. So that gets us close to the end of the presentation part there. I do have a video, and Chris, I don't know if you want to play it or if you want me to try to play it. I'm guessing you would play it from there. And it's about a 2.5-minute video of a guy that had been through it, and it said, how has the military shaped your faith life? Again, my mom taught me right and wrong. I had what I had a drug problem when I was a kid and a teenager. I thought it was a very severe drug problem. My mom had no issues with it because she drug me to church. She drug me to youth group. She drug me to do all those things. And I'm like, man, I just want to sleep. I don't want to do all that nonsense. But she taught me to be very responsible. And in the military, that worked really well. But I lost that part where I was understanding of the soul and other people. It was very much black and white, and my kids, and it's not a happy thing to think, they would say, yeah, when they asked, how's it living with Australians, and they go, he's a lot of fun, but he's too harsh. And I was. And somebody commented one time when I was getting close to retirement from the military, and I said I was going to do something at church tonight, and they're like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah, why? And they're like, oh, nothing. I'm like, well, now you got to tell me. Well, why is it? They're like, no, we don't do it. I'm like, no, I'm thick-skinned. I swear I can take it. They said, well, I just wouldn't have thought you have been going to church. And I'm like, well, why not? They said, well, I would have thought you were an atheist. I was like, what? They said, well, it's obvious when you're doing things, when we go into meetings, when we do whatever, that you're going to get what you want out of it. You're not particularly concerned about the other people involved. And I was like, whew, okay, so that's not good. So I need to do some reflecting there and make sure that if I say that I'm Christian, that I'm actually being Christian, and people can see that I'm Christian without me having to tell them. And so that's where I strive to be now. Yeah, Chris, if you go ahead and play the movie or that video, and let me know when it's done, because I won't be able to hear it. and just let me know how it's going with it.
Inside them walls to dead men.
Here we go. Start it over.
I'm gonna tell you about Kairos, this prison ministry that comes inside them walls to dead men. A lot of people say we dead men. I mean, I was just a madman. Everybody got a story. But when you really get touched by God, that's when you know you got a real story. Well, my name is Tommy Fisher. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. I grew up in the street gangs there. I got a lot of trouble. I ended up doing 20 years, 11 months flat in prison. I had an aggravated life sentence. I wasn't supposed to never get out. I ran the gangs in prison, you know, and I hurt a lot of men for some crazy reasons. I used to actually get Christians beat up because they said they wanted to come to Christ. That's how crazy and radical I was. But when they pick Kairos, they only pick the worst inmates on the unit because they want the roughest dudes on the unit, the fools, to get changed. And this ministry is actually going in here and showing this love and changing people like that. I'm gonna tell you the truth, I went for their food. I didn't go to get saved, but God had set me up. When I was sitting there, man, you know, I was listening to this dude talk. You know, when Paul was on the road to Damascus, and Jesus' presence knocked him off the horse, I know for a fact, I felt the presence of the Holy Spirit. I felt it like Paul felt it. And from that day forward, man, God has just been blessing my life. While I was in that prison, I got into this Third Pond Theological Seminary and Bible Institute. I got a bachelor's degree in biblical studies. I also went to college and I got me an LBT. I just thank God for God blessed me. I got a licensed counselor. You know, and I really thank God for what he changed me into because I used to be a monster. I used to really be a monster. The only reason why I don't know if I ever killed a man because I never went back and asked the man who I shot, was he dead? But I shot a lot of people and I hurt a lot of people's lives. But ministries like Kairos can go inside them walls and show a man God's love. Man, if I could tell anybody about Kairos, man, it's changing lives. Because I got to get God back what he gave me. He gave me back my life. He gave me them years that the locust stole from me. He gave them back to me. And I'm thankful for it.
Okay, all right. And I'm gonna tell you, then we can, like I said, if anybody's got any other questions, I'll give you a response because I may not have an answer, but that video always gets to me, and I've seen it a number of times over a number of years. But one of the things that I asked the gentleman inside the penitentiary is when I can see that they're letting go of the dark, and when I'm like, you know, I asked him, I said, well, let me ask you here, if you had to do the rest of your time in one of these two places, which would you choose? If you had to do the rest of your time in a prison or a monastery, which one would you choose? And the answer is always the same, that they would choose a monastery. And I come back to them and say, well, you can do that. It's not going to change the food, it's not going to change the living conditions, it's not going to change anything else, but it will change how you do your time and how you feed that relationship with God. And so if you want to live in a monastery instead of a prison, you can do that right where you are. So at that point, that's most of what I really wanted to express, and I appreciate y'all for giving me the opportunity to do so. And if there are any other questions, I'll watch the chat and we will see what we can
Questions?
do.
Anyone have a question? No? Yep. 1 sec.
Okay.
Has he ever met an inmate whose life he changed out in regular life after performing?
Chris has put in here, he asked, what kind of hair care products do you use? I use a matte finish dome wax up here. It gives me a nice sheen. When it rains, it comes off, but it doesn't give that much shine. So anyway, that's that. Oh, and another one here. Have you ever met an inmate who changed after meeting you? Yeah, probably a few hundred. And led a normal life. Well, that's one of those things that I have to accept about the Kairos ministry. Part of the ministry is that we can't talk to the prisoners one-on-one, and we can't have a relationship with them outside the prison, and well, especially while they're in the prison. And so the goal of the Kairos prison ministry, most prison ministries, are for those folks to build that Christian community inside the penitentiary. And during one weekend, it really stands out of my mind. We were in the where we had it was a gymnasium, and we're doing the retreat, and look out on the yard, and there are 12, 13, I mean, this is maximum security in the pit. There are 12, 13 inmates out there holding hands in a circle, praying for us inside the gym, that those guys that are going through the Kairos weekend now will let go of the dark side and just turn and walk in the light. So yeah, that I've seen so many people change. And again, the statistics show that when guys do get out of prison, that the percentage that will come back to prison if they've been part of Kairos is greatly reduced. And a lot of the guys that we work with in the prison probably aren't ever going to get out. There's a percentage that will, but yeah, they've done things that when they were sentenced, they're likely, if they do get out, they'll be very old when they do. And I got another question here. Is what you do dangerous? Yeah, I guess so. They have a correctional officer that sits up behind a two-way mirror and up in a crow's nest when we're inside the institution to protect us. They've got a long gun with rubber bullets. But on the first day when we meet them, I'm very watchful, because I've had guys come in and just be high, just completely high on whatever, and people don't make good decisions when they're on drugs. But so the first few hours on that first day, I'm watchful. I'm still a bit watchful on that second day, but by the late afternoon of that second day, I don't think it's dangerous anymore, because, and especially by the time we get to Saturday, if something happened in the institution, I think the guys going through the retreat would probably circle around us to defend us. And so it's an amazing transformation. So that's my 2 cents on that. I've never seen anybody do anything that was dangerous. Chaplain that is now retired, he got hurt at one point. It was during a regular church service inside the prison, but during the retreat, I've never seen anybody be violent or anything like that. And it's weird though, talking about drugs, without going too far, because Chris will give me the stink eye here if I go too long, but inside the prison, they have a little square of paper, maybe 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch, and they're sprayed with generally fentanyl, and so that's how a lot of the drugs get smuggled in, and they'll sell or buy a small little square of paper that somebody, and they'll find a way to ignite it, and sometimes it gets them really high, and sometimes it gets them dead, and so you got guys overdosing and all those things, but it's an escape. And the weird part is, they said it's pretty easy to get, and it's not that expensive. It's also not regulated, and so you get this little square of paper. But that's where they're escaping. There's a living in a prison instead of a monastery. Okay. Any other questions before Chris gives me the stink eye for going too long? And I know Chris is going to be able to figure out the comms right after we get done. you ever converted a guard? That's a great question. I have had a number of very spiritual discussions with the guard or correction officer. They like to be called guards, correction officer, and I have seen correction officers change the way that they interact with the residents. Now I don't see them back in the gallery, the cell blocks. I don't see them back in the gallery, but I've seen over the years that I've gotten to see the same correction officers for a lot of years. I have seen a lot of changes, and guys that talk to me about God and their faith, and that's not the norm for guys, especially inside that place. I don't think that's the norm for anybody anywhere, really. I do. I'm always willing and open to talk about my faith, and one of those weird things is that I get a lot of people approaching me because they're hungry to, hey, what about this? And what about I believe? And talk about their faith, but out in their everyday world, they don't have that welcome, I guess, that welcome mat out there to talk about their spirituality. And people are hungry for it. But we're told, no, that we do that, it's on the side. We do it on Sunday. Which I think is one of the reasons what y'all do there at the camp is so great, because it comes out there and it becomes part of your everyday, every minute. So, any other questions? Okay, we got the hooded warrior in the front whispering. I don't know if it's whispering a question there. I think that's it. Okay. All right. Well,
Wait, hold
God
on,
bless y'all.
Wait.
Oh, we do have one more. Okay, got it. This gets in.
Do they do mass and maximum security?
You're right. Do they have mass at maximum security? You know, in the maximum security, we have mass more often. It's a shortage of priests everywhere. At Menard in Illinois, the pit, the inmates, unless they have a job inside the prison, they're in their cell 23 hours a day, and sometimes 23 hours a day only because they get out for an hour a couple of times a week, and or they get out to go take a shower. Other than that, they're in their cells and they're locked down. So the religious services are few and far between, depending on the institution, and which is kind of wild because they still have a chaplain, but they don't necessarily have the ability to have guys go to chapel because they restrict the numbers. And again, it depends upon how violent the institution is and the rules that they have there, and how much that the institution really wants to support faith. Now, Bontour, Missouri, the prison that I've been going to, the warden has come and talked to the team, come talk to the retreat, and I've never seen that down at the pit. But in the other penitentiary, he shared his faith journey and his story, which really was amazing, and it opened up the inmates sitting in the retreat, and they're like, oh, okay. And you could just see a change in them, that the warden wants the best for me and for my soul. It's not just a job. So that's neat. All right, Chris gave me the week wrap up. I appreciate y'all. I do have one thing for y'all to do because you're at a Christian Catholic camp. And just show hands, do y'all say the Our Father every now and then there at the camp? Yes, no? Okay, you do. Here's something somebody, I saw them do it and I really liked it. When you're getting ready to ask folks to say the Our Father together, you just holler out, whose Father? And the response is, Our Father, who art in heaven, and you start the prayer. So anyway, I like it, it's good stuff. I appreciate y'all taking the time and being gracious enough to listen to me. And Chris, I'll catch up with you later on. Other than that, God bless you, appreciate what you do. Y'all have a wonderful day.